Welcome, everybody, to our deep dive into Rugby League. We're going to be tracing its history from its, I guess you could say, rebellious origins all the way to its spread around the world. I've always been struck by just how fast and intense Rugby League is.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to explore the stories behind the sport. So.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that's so fascinating about Rugby League is it's not just about the action on the field. It's about social class and economics and the fight for fairness. Really, professional sports, all those things are tied up together.
Let's rewind the clock.
Okay.
Way back to 1895, England.
Yeah.
Just for those who aren't as familiar with Rugby League, what was the rugby landscape looking like back then?
Well, rugby football was hugely popular. It was the dominant sport, but it was strictly amateur. And this is where a lot of the tension starts to build.
Okay.
Because you had this stark social and economic divide in England at the time. You had the wealthier, amateur-minded rugby clubs, mostly in the South. And they believed that players should compete just purely for the love of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you had the working class clubs in the North.
Right.
And these players, I mean, they were working in mines, they were working in factories and shipyards.
Right. They couldn't just afford to take time off to play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they needed some sort of compensation if they were going to miss work for rugby matches. And that became known as broken time payments.
And those broken time payments, it wasn't just about money, right? It was about opportunity and fairness for these working class players.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine you're a talented rugby player working in a coal mine.
Mm-hmm.
And you're asked to play in this big match, but it means missing a day's wage, maybe even risking your job.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it was a real dilemma for these players.
And the governing body, the RFU, the Rugby Football Union, they were totally against it.
Oh, yeah.
They saw it as a threat to the amateur ethos.
Yeah. And it ultimately leads to this pivotal moment in rugby history.
Okay.
The meeting at the George Hotel in Huddersfield on August 29th, 1895.
I've heard about this.
22 northern clubs, fed up with the RFU, their refusal to acknowledge their needs, the needs of their players, they decide to break away.
Oh.
And they form their own organization, the Northern Rugby Football Union, NRFU for short.
So this wasn't just like, they're tweaking the rules or disagreement. This was a seismic shift.
Right.
Like some of the biggest clubs in the game today were part of that breakaway.
Oh, absolutely.
Like who are we talking about?
We're talking Huddersfield, Wigan, Leeds, Bradford, St. Helens, Hull FC, Warrington.
Wow.
They were all there. And these weren't just rugby clubs.
Right.
These were institutions in their communities. I mean, they represented the heart and soul of industrial England.
So it was really about so much more than just let's tweak the rules of the game a little bit.
Yeah.
It was a statement.
It was. It really was a declaration of independence. It was like a social justice movement within sports.
A demand for respect, recognition.
As a working class athlete, exactly.
So Rugby League was born out of that.
It was.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But it was just the governance. There were some pretty big rule changes too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I know they were trying to create a faster, more dynamic game. And I've always been curious about how those rule changes came about.
Well, the interesting thing is initially they actually played under the same rules as Rugby Union, but they weren't afraid to experiment. One of the first big changes they made was to reduce the number of players from 15 to 13.
Whoa, okay. That's a big change.
Yeah, that's huge.
I mean, that really changes the dynamic of the game.
Massively.
Fewer players, more space.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it did. It opened up the field, created all these new opportunities for attack, made it so much faster and more free-flowing.
Was there any pushback against that? I mean, it seems like a pretty radical departure.
Oh, there was debate, for sure.
Right.
But the clubs that formed the NRFU, they were determined to create a spectacle, something that would really excite the fans.
Right.
Showcase the athleticism of their players.
And it wasn't just about reducing the number of players. There's also the play the ball, which I always found really fascinating.
Yeah.
Like in Rugby Union, you have those long, drawn-out rucks, players piled on top of each other.
Yeah.
But in Rugby League, it's so much more fluid.
Well, the play the ball was, it was kind of a stroke of genius.
Yeah.
The tackled player just gets up and rolls the ball back with his foot to restart play.
Yeah.
Gets rid of all those slow, messy rucks, keeps the action moving.
Yeah.
Really emphasizes the speed and continuity of the game.
So fewer players, quicker restarts.
Yeah.
It's clear they were focused on creating a faster, more exciting spectacle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't stop there.
Oh, no.
They also got rid of lineouts.
Lineouts, those set pieces where they jump up for the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can see how that would really speed things up.
Well, Rugby League, it was all about keeping the ball in play.
Right.
Creating those attacking opportunities.
Right.
So yeah, they wanted to shift the emphasis away from those set pieces, more towards running and passing.
These were really designed to attract the fans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The ones who were looking for something dynamic, something entertaining.
Yeah.
And those early innovators, they weren't done yet. They went on to introduce one of the most significant rule changes in Rugby League history.
Okay.
The 6-tackle rule.
Ah, the 6-tackle rule. I've always found that one fascinating. Can you explain how that works and what kind of impact it had on the game?
Yeah. So basically, a team has 6 tackles to advance the ball downfield. If they don't score or kick the ball away on the 6th tackle,
Yeah.
they turn over possession.
So it's kind of like in American football,
Yeah.
where they have 4 downs to move the ball 10 yards.
Yeah, kinda.
It forces them to think strategically.
It does.
Use their kicks strategically.
Exactly. Yeah, it's almost like game of chess, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where you've got to think a couple of moves ahead.
Right.
Do you want to run the ball, pass it, kick it?
Yeah. So yeah, the 6-tackle rule forces teams to be more strategic, creative in how they attack.
So that rule really adds a whole other level to the game.
It does.
It's a lot of tactical depth.
It makes Rugby League unique.
Yeah.
It's this combination of physicality and speed and this real strategic complexity.
So we've seen how Rugby League emerged from this clash between the old and the new.
Yeah.
The amateur ideals, desire for fairness and opportunity for those working class players.
Exactly.
But the story doesn't end there.
No, it doesn't.
Rugby League was about to embark on a global journey.
It was.
Take it to all corners of the world.
Exactly, to some of the most unexpected corners of the world.
It's really incredible how it went from, this small group of clubs to this global phenomenon.
It is.
So Rugby League, it was born out of this clash between tradition and this need for progress. Really a social revolution, right? But also a sporting one.
Yeah. And those early pioneers, they had this vision for a faster, more exciting game. But it wasn't just about changing the rules, was it?
No, it wasn't.
They wanted to take it to the world.
They did. Rugby League, it had this wanderlust, and it quickly spread beyond England, finding fertile ground in places like Australia, New Zealand, France, even Papua New Guinea, and the Pacific Islands.
Let's talk about Australia for a second. I've always been fascinated by just how deeply ingrained Rugby League is in Australian culture.
Yeah.
It's like a religion down there.
It's incredibly popular. And, the roots of the game in Australia, they go back to those same themes of social mobility and opportunity that we see in England.
Okay.
A key figure in all this is a guy named James J. Giltinan. He was this visionary entrepreneur, and he was joined by Dally Messenger, this legendary Rugby Union player who was drawn to, the professional opportunities offered by Rugby League.
Okay.
So the two of them, they formed the New South Wales Rugby League in 1908. And that same year, the first official competition kicked off.
So they saw what was happening in England, and they're like, we need this down under.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they weren't wrong. I mean, Rugby League just resonated with the working class communities in Australia.
Yeah.
It was this pathway to success for talented players. And a thrilling spectacle for fans.
And out of those early days of Australian Rugby League, some iconic clubs emerged, right?
Yeah.
Names that our listeners might recognize.
Absolutely. I mean, the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
Oh, yeah, the Rabbitohs.
They were one of the foundation clubs of the New South Wales Rugby League.
Wow.
And they're still going strong today.
I've seen a few Rabbitohs games. The atmosphere is electric.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these clubs just become so integral to the community.
It's a testament to the power of sport, bringing people together. And that passion for Rugby League in Australia, it's just as intense today as it was back in 1908.
Speaking of intense passion, we can't talk about Australian Rugby League without mentioning the state of origin.
Oh, yeah.
It's more than just a rivalry.
It is.
It's a whole cultural phenomenon. For those who might not be familiar, what makes it so special?
So the State of Origin, it's an annual best-of-3 series played between New South Wales and Queensland.
Okay.
It's all about state pride, heritage.
Yeah.
The players are selected based on where they were born.
Wow.
And the rivalry is just unbelievably fierce.
I've heard the stories.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like The whole country stopped.
Yeah, it does. It's one of the biggest sporting events in Australia.
Yeah.
It captures the imagination of the entire nation.
So we got England, we got Australia, but let's not forget New Zealand.
Right.
They're a rugby powerhouse, but I'm not sure where they fit into the rugby league story.
Well, New Zealand, they were quick to adopt rugby league. They
Oh, yeah.
saw what was happening in Australia, and they wanted in on the action. So in 1910, just 2 years after the formation of the New South Wales Rugby League,
Right.
they established their own governing body.
They didn't just want to sit back and watch.
Yeah.
They wanted to be a part of this movement.
Absolutely. And they've become a major force on the international stage.
Yeah.
The New Zealand Kiwis, their national team, they're known for their skill, their athleticism, their competitiveness. I mean, they've won the Rugby League World Cup.
Wow.
And they consistently produce some of the best players in the world.
Okay, so we got England, Australia, New Zealand, all part of the rugby league family. But what about France?
Ah, France.
I know they love their Rugby Union.
Yeah.
So how did rugby league break into that scene?
It's kind of an interesting story.
Okay.
There was this former Rugby Union player named Jean Gallia.
Okay.
He was in England, and he saw rugby league being played. And he was captivated by it. I mean, the speed, the excitement. He thought it was the future of rugby. So in 1934, he introduces it to France.
So he was kind of a rebel himself.
Yeah.
Saw something new, and he was like, let's try this.
Exactly. He was a visionary. He saw the potential of the sport in France, and he was determined to make it happen.
So the French Rugby League, it was born.
It was. That same year, they formed the French Rugby League Federation.
Wow.
And they start their own professional competition.
So things were going well.
Yeah.
But I imagine it wasn't all smooth sailing, though.
Right.
I mean, France has got this huge rugby union tradition.
They do.
Introducing a rival code must have been a challenge.
Well, yeah. And then World War II happens.
Oh, yeah.
And it deals a big blow to rugby league in France.
Yeah.
The Vichy government, they banned the sport.
Wow.
I mean, it was a really dark period. Took a
Yeah.
long time for the game to recover after the war.
I'm glad they were able to revive it, and that France is still a rugby league nation.
Oh, yeah, yeah. They've even got a team, the Catalans Dragons. They compete in the English Super League.
Right.
And the French national team, they're getting stronger all the time.
It's amazing, a sport born in the heart of industrial England.
Yeah.
It's found a home in so many different cultures.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is.
It's a testament to the universality of sport, how it can transcend borders, bring people together.
And speaking of transcending borders, there's one place we haven't talked about yet that's got a really special relationship with rugby league.
Okay.
Papua New Guinea.
Papua New Guinea.
It's the national sport there.
It is.
It's the only country in the world where rugby league is the national sport.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, it's a pretty fascinating story.
Okay.
It actually goes back to World War II,
Okay.
when Australian soldiers introduced the game to the locals.
Oh, wow.
And it just resonated with Papua New Guinean culture, the physicality, the teamwork,
Right.
the community spirit. It all fit.
So it's almost like as a bridge between the cultures,
Yeah.
even in the middle of war.
Yeah.
And it just took off.
It did. It spread throughout the country and became much more than just a game.
Right.
I mean, it became this source of national pride,
Mm-hmm.
a way for them to, to express their identity, their passion.
The Papua New Guinea national team, the Kumals, they've become a real force.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, they play with this incredible energy and passion.
they do. It's contagious, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so inspiring to watch.
They've competed in every Rugby League World Cup since 1985.
Wow.
And they're known for just their physicality, their athleticism, their never-say-die attitude. They're a real symbol of national pride,
Yeah.
a testament to how powerful sport can be.
So we've talked about how rugby league found its way to Australia, New Zealand, France, Papua New Guinea. What about the Pacific Islands?
Oh, yeah. The Pacific Islands,
Samoa, Tonga, Fiji. They've all embraced rugby league.
they have.
They've brought something really special to the game, haven't they?
They have. The Pacific Islands are just this hotbed of rugby league talent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these players are known for their size, their strength, their speed, their incredible skill. And their passion for the game is just infectious.
Yeah.
You can see it in the way they celebrate, their commitment on the field. It's truly inspiring.
And it's not just about the spectacle, right?
Yeah.
Rugby League, it's provided real opportunities for so many of these talented players.
It has. For some of them, it's a chance to get a professional contract,
Right.
support their families, create a better life for themselves and their communities.
It's incredible, isn't it? A sport born out of this fight for fairness in England
Yeah.
has had such a profound impact
Mm.
on cultures all around the world.
It's a testament to the power of sport to connect people, break down barriers,
Yeah.
and create opportunities.
And speaking of global connections, let's talk about the Rugby League World Cup,
Okay.
because I know this tournament has played such a huge role in expanding the reach of the sport.
It has.
What I find interesting is the first Rugby League World Cup was held in 1954, even before Rugby Union had its own World Cup.
That's right. I mean, Rugby League, it was really a pioneer in embracing the international stage.
Yeah.
And that first World Cup, it was held in France.
Mm.
And it was a real symbol of how far the sport had come since those rebellious clubs broke away from the RFU back in 1895.
And it's grown into a truly global event.
It has.
I mean, we're seeing teams from all over the world competing.
Yeah, the Rugby League World Cup's become a showcase
Mm-hmm.
for just the global reach of the sport
Yeah.
and its ability to connect people.
It's been an incredible journey, tracing the path of Rugby League,
Yeah.
from its humble beginnings in England to its global expansion. But as we start to look ahead to the future of the sport, I'm curious about the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead.
Well, that's a great point because as Rugby League continues to grow and evolve, it faces some really crucial questions.
Mm.
Like, how can it maintain those strong working class roots as it becomes more commercially successful?
Right, because that's something we talked about earlier. It's a tough balance.
Mm-hmm.
How can you appeal to a wider audience
Right.
without losing touch with those communities that helped build the sport?
It is. And it's something that the leaders of the game are going to have to address very carefully. They've got to make sure that Rugby League remains accessible to people from all backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to continue to offer opportunities, particularly for those from disadvantaged communities.
Right.
And it can't become, just a sport for the elite.
What about the global landscape?
Yeah.
We've seen Rugby League spread to all these new countries in recent years.
Yeah.
Is that expansion likely to continue?
Well, I think so. I mean, the World Cup's been so instrumental in introducing the sport to new audiences.
Right.
And as more countries, develop their programs and compete on that international stage, the popularity is only going to grow.
So we could be seeing even more nations challenging those traditional powerhouses.
Yeah.
England, Australia, New Zealand.
Absolutely.
That would be amazing.
It would. And that's one of the things that's so intriguing about the future of Rugby League.
Yeah.
The potential for growth is enormous. I mean, we could see the sport expanding into new markets,
Right.
attracting new fans,
Mm-hmm.
becoming this truly global phenomenon.
But with growth comes its own set of challenges.
Oh, for sure.
How does Rugby League compete with the other major sports for attention, for fans,
Mm-hmm.
for those lucrative sponsorship dollars?
Well, that's where innovation and adaptation become absolutely crucial.
Okay.
And Rugby League has a history of evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be more important than ever in the future.
Right.
It's got to stay relevant. It's got to engage younger audiences.
Right.
And it's got to capture the imagination of those fans in a world that's just saturated with different entertainment options.
So they need to be willing to experiment, to try new things, to kind of push the boundaries.
Absolutely. And there are already some interesting conversations happening
Okay.
about, how to make the game even faster, even more exciting for those viewers.
Like what kind of things are they talking about?
Well, some have suggested reducing the number of interchanges,
Okay.
which would force players to stay on the field longer,
Right.
leading to a more physically demanding game.
Mm-hmm.
Others have proposed tweaking the scoring system, putting even more emphasis on tries,
Right.
encouraging more attacking play.
Those are some pretty big changes.
They are.
But I guess it's about finding that balance, right?
It is.
Preserving the traditions
Yeah.
while making it more appealing to a wider audience.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about evolution, not revolution.
Right.
It's about finding ways to enhance the viewing experience,
Mm-hmm.
but without compromising the essence of what makes Rugby League so special.
And speaking of the viewing experience, how do you see technology impacting the future of the sport?
Well, technology's already had this huge impact on sports broadcasting.
Yeah.
And Rugby League's no exception.
Hmm.
I mean, we've got high-definition cameras, slow-motion replays, real-time data analysis. I mean, that's all changed the way we watch the game.
Right.
But we're just scratching the surface.
What's next? What kind of tech innovations are we going to see?
Well, we could see things like, virtual reality experiences that put fans right in the middle of the action.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, imagine being able to see the game from a player's perspective,
Yeah.
to feel the impact of a tackle,
Mm-hmm.
to experience the thrill of scoring a try firsthand.
I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
It'd be like being out there on the field.
Exactly. And with how fast VR technology is advancing, this is not just some pipe dream.
Yeah.
It's a real possibility.
What about data and analytics?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of sports are using data to improve player performance, develop new strategies. Is Rugby League keeping up in that area?
They are. Data analytics is becoming increasingly important.
Yeah.
I mean, teams are using data to track players' movements,
Right.
analyze their opponents' weaknesses, and identify areas for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And as the technology gets more sophisticated, we're going to see even more sophisticated applications of data.
So we're talking like real-time data informing decisions for coaches.
Potentially, yeah.
Wow.
Or, sensors that players wear that
Mhm.
track their every move.
It's amazing. It
Yeah.
really is. To think about how far Rugby League has come
It is.
from those 22 clubs meeting in Huddersfield
Yeah.
back in 1895. And it's even more amazing to think where the sport could go in the years to come.
It really is. It's a testament to the vision of those early pioneers.
Right.
The passion of the players,
Mm-hmm.
the unwavering support of the fans. Rugby League is still thriving, and as long as it embraces innovation, stays true to those values, remembers where it came from, I think it has a very bright future ahead of it.
You've really painted a picture of the challenges and the opportunities facing Rugby League. But ultimately, its success is going to come down to its ability to connect with fans on an emotional level. Excellent.
You're absolutely right. It's the stories, the rivalries, the moments of brilliance, the sense of community.
Right.
That's what makes Rugby League so special.
Yeah.
And it's those things, those intangible qualities
Mm-hmm.
that are going to ensure the sport's success.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Rugby League, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think it's to appreciate that unique blend of tradition and innovation that defines Rugby League.
It's a sport that has those roots in the working class.
Mm-hmm.
It's embraced professionalism,
Yeah.
and it's constantly evolved
Yeah.
to stay relevant, stay exciting.
Exactly. And as we look to the future, it's crucial that Rugby League maintains that balance
Right.
between honoring its past and embracing the possibilities.
Well said. Now, before we finish, we wanted to leave you with a final thought, something to ponder. As you continue to explore this incredible sport, we've talked about the history of Rugby League's incredible journey, from a fight for fairness in England to becoming this global phenomenon. And we've also talked about the traditions of the game, its innovations,
Mm-hmm.
and the challenges it faces in a world of sports that's changing all the time. But, as we wrap up this deep dive, I kind of want to leave you with a question,
Okay.
something to ponder as you go on your own journey exploring Rugby League.
Okay.
So we've seen how Rugby League has adapted and evolved
Mm-hmm.
over the years, but can it navigate the increasingly complex world of professional sports in the 21st century?
That's a great question because we're talking about
Yeah.
streaming services, social media, just this constant demand for new content.
Right. Yeah.
So how does Rugby League carve out its own space in this really crowded marketplace?
Does it need to become even more spectacular,
Mhm.
even more entertaining
Right.
to capture those younger audiences that have so many choices?
And can it hold on to that unique identity?
Yeah.
That gritty,
Yeah.
skillful,
Yeah.
passionate nature of the game? I mean, that's what makes it special.
In a world that often seems to prioritize flash over substance.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the things that Rugby League's leaders and players and even the fans are going to have to think about in the coming years.
Yeah. And it's a conversation worth having, right? Because those answers, I think, will shape the future
Mm-hmm.
of this incredible sport. So as you go and watch Rugby League, as you follow the sport, think about its evolution. Think about how it adapts to a new era while staying true to its heritage.
It's a question with no easy answers.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a question worth asking. And I think as you watch those bone-crushing tackles, those incredible runs, those moments of just brilliance, remember, you're watching a sport with this really rich history and a vibrant future.
A sport that came from a fight for fairness and opportunity. A sport that has captured the hearts of millions around the world, and that continues to change and surprise us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Rugby League.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that passion for the game alive.